Over to Rwanda, where the FIFA Council met and rubber-stamped a number of proposed changes. Gab, let's start with the 48-team World Cup. Of course, as we know, in 2026, it won't have 16 groups of 3, but 12 groups of 4.
Which makes a lot more sense. 16 groups of 3 is a recipe for collusion and chaos. Now, I want to say, I have no problem whatsoever with the 48-team World Cup. I think it fits what the World Cup is these days. And that's fine. And you can read, I wrote a column about this. You can go and read it. You can go and tell me I'm an idiot, as many people have done, because of the dilution of quality, whatever. We don't have to debate here. But if you are going to have one, I think hopefully we can agree 12 groups of 4 makes more sense.
Definitely.
Even though it means that third place finishers go through. What I would have done a little bit differently was I would have
seeded the top of the groups, right?
I would have given the 8 teams, the 8 group winners, a bye to the round of 16. And then the other 4 and the rest, they can play off as like a sweetener, because I think it's important to have that. That didn't happen because more games equals more money, and more money, which then goes back to the member associations, many of whom would not exist without FIFA funding.
True. The World Cup would be a bit longer as well, a week longer, I think.
You think 6 days longer, but again, I don't think it's an issue.
There's more games. So.
It's the middle of the summer. They get time off after and before. Whatever this is not a player welfare issue. Anybody who says this is a player welfare issue, no, there's no player welfare coming into this. This is not.
It's an extra game. But if you win the World Cup, you play 8 instead of the
one extra game for 4 teams. One of them is the third place playoff, which nobody cares about anyway. Jules, we also know that in 2025 there will be an expanded Club World Cup replacing the Confederations Cup. So it'll be like a test run. It's going to involve 32 clubs. This is the allocation. Tell me if you think it reflects the relative strength and is inclusive enough. 12 from UEFA, 6 from South America, 4 each from CONCACAF, Asia, and Africa, 1 from Oceania, and 1 from the host nation. Which, if you want to be cynical and say it'll be Saudi Arabia, no, it probably won't be, because I presume we'll have this in the US. So
yes, I mean, you could say that maybe there's too many, maybe from the UEFA, from the teams, the Champions League teams, maybe. But I mean,
they bring the money.
They bring money, and they bring viewing numbers, viewing ratings, everything you want, big stars. So I'm all for it. As you know, we love our football. More games. This is good, as you said. It probably be played in the summer every 4 years to qualify. It's the winners of the Champions League, for example, who will get guaranteed place in it. The rest for the coefficient, all that kind. There's a lot of money to be earned for clubs, for example. So that's good.
Are you what about the calendar congestion argument?
That's what I find really strange, is that decision was made, and maybe you tell me they might have asked the clubs if they were okay. I know UEFA voted for it, for example, but how can you decide this and without consulting the leagues, for example? And Javier Tebas was very vocal with a big statement as soon as this was announced official, by saying you can't do those things without asking the leagues if they're in favor or not, because they would have their schedule, even off season. They will have things that they've prepared, they've worked on, maybe.
They'll have
for
summer
the clubs.
tours.
Yeah, so all of that you have to take in consideration. You can't just take that decision on your own.
I don't want to just be cynical and be like everybody's looking after their own interests, but I think to some degree people are, right? So FIFA like this because they need a warm-up tournament, and it replaces the Confederations Cup, which, is expanded and whatever, but ultimately was not a big money maker for anybody, and people were into it, right? 32 teams will be a better test run, right? And on top of that, it'll make a ton of money and give them more leverage over clubs. So that's why FIFA, and by the way, we say FIFA, it's 211 member federations, right? Voted in favor of this. It generates more money. I think it also, there is a balance of power argument vis-a-vis UEFA and the Champions League as well, which I think comes into it. So that's why they're in favor of it. The clubs are in favor of it. And when I say the clubs, I don't mean, the club from Oceania who's going to go. We're like, whoa, hey, we get to play Real Madrid. No, I mean the 12 UEFA clubs that are likely to qualify, which are these massive clubs. Yeah. And they're in favor of it because they're going to get a big chunk of money. And in some ways, they're the ones who matters, right? So we know the federations are in favor of it. The clubs are in favor of it. UEFA probably would rather have a summer Champions League if it were entirely up to them. Yeah. But equally, there's give and take and there's negotiation. And more importantly, the UEFA members associations and UEFA want to keep the clubs happy because they don't want the clubs going off and forming their own Super League, as has happened before, or trying to. So they went along with it. Who's not happy with this? The league. If I'm Javier Tebas, I say, I wanted to organize a
course.
Liga Espectacular in the US
Miami, yeah.
and a tour and whatever, right? So they're not going to like it. The people who organize the summer tours of the US or in Asia, they're not going to like it.
No, of course. But like in France, you have the Community Shield, for example. You know, maybe
still
clashing
have
at
your
this.
Community
I
Shield.
know, but that's going to take a long time to play
Hey.
this tournament.
Go and play it in Saudi Arabia in January, like your neighbors in Spain and Italy are going to do, right?
That's true.
Join
That's an
us.
idea. That's an idea.
But no, and the player welfare argument, which I think is a valid argument. I'd like there to be more science behind it. I think if there's a rest period before and after, it's one thing, right?
Yeah,
So
but
if
how long? That's the thing, Gab. It's not just a week
you have
before and a week
sports
after.
you have sports science people who do this, right? I think it is something to track. I think the number of like I think there's too many teams in the top leagues in Europe. I think they play too much football. I'm totally in agreement on this, right? There is a balance to be struck there.
Yeah.
That for me is a single biggest argument against it. But you know, they voted on it.
And just to make things more confusing, Gab, FIFA also said they would explore an annual Club World Cup that would look a little bit like the current Club World Cup.
Yeah, they'll have to call it.
Because this one, as we said, they mentioned before, is once every 4 years. It's
Yeah.
every 4 years, so it won't be every year.
Yeah. So this is the trophy that this year was played in Morocco, and played in the Gulf. It was played before that. It was played in Japan for many years. And you have the champions of each confederation.
Yeah.
And it used to be a really big deal back when it was the champions of Europe against South America many, many moons ago. It's still a big deal, I think, in South America and
Yeah,
outside
for sure.
of Europe. In Europe, yeah, it's a bigger deal in Spain, but in England, less so. And I don't even know that it was on TV. I think it was on weird FIFA TV or something over here. Like, I understand wanting to keep it. The way they're doing it, where it's, okay, the champions of Europe, the UEFA Champions League winners, will be challenged by the winner of this other tournament involving...
So instead of playing the semi-final like they do now, and then the final if they qualify, they just play the final, basically.
Yeah, the other teams all play amongst themselves
Yeah.
somewhere. And then the winner of the other team will go and play in the final against... I don't know. It feels a little bit hokey. And then what do you do in the years when you do have the big Club World
Yeah,
Cup?
you don't play.
I
Which one has the most value? The one that you...
Oh, you have to ask that question.
Oh, my God.
Come on, man. Okay, Jules, here's something that FIFA did that I hope most will agree on. And after having criticized them, maybe we can praise them a tiny bit, maybe. From 2026, there will be one fewer international break. Remember, right now we have the September, October, November.
Yeah.
Now they're going to put the September and October ones together.
Yeah.
It'll be a 16-day break, which I think is actually shorter than the two individual breaks right now put together, in which they will play 4 games in late September, early October. Good or
That's the
bad?
beginning. I won't lie. I was expecting more. To be fair, as we've been saying, this was a big thing, big deal, because you had the chance to reformat the calendar.
What do you want to do? Have all 3 international
No,
breaks
but for
together?
example, they have the one in June. They will have 2 more games in June. We've seen last June what a disaster it was at the end of such a long season to have those teams, and they played 4 games each, which is more. I give you that, but still, the players didn't want to be there in June. They didn't want to have to play international football.
So I think the June ones, correct me if I'm wrong, exist because at some point you have to play international games.
Yeah,
and
no,
I think
I
they
understand.
exist for the Nations League and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then a
no,
bunch
which is true. But regardless of what you have to play, it's still extending the season a bit longer, and you go back to players' welfare
Yeah.
of like, well, okay, when is the holidays? Because if you still play in June, well, then you have 2 weeks at the end of June, and then start of July you have to go back training. So what, 2 weeks off? Is that all really? And that's why I think this is good that you've scrapped one. We're far from the Arsene Wenger idea, or we could have like everything played in 2 months and then there's no club football at the time, which was maybe too extreme. Maybe there was a middle ground to find somewhere. I don't know. But when I saw the June one, I was like, okay, but this is it. Like, they still haven't got it really.
I
I would have rather kept, before you go, September, October, November, and scrap the June one, for example.
and gotten rid of June. I think as I said, I think the problem with that is you've got the Nations League in CONCACAF, and you have it in. And the other thing with the June one is in the years when you have a major competition like the World Cup or the Euros, it kind of gets swallowed up by the World Cup and the Euros because you play your pre-tournament friendlies there, which you would have to do anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was the compromise that was made there. I don't know. I think it's better than the status quo, but I take your point on
Yeah.
June.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.